It's great to see you again today. I see that our synagogue is a little bit more popular than this MGO wonderful auditorium, even though that the air conditioning is here working much better than by us, since we don't have air conditioning. I would like first to thank my good friend Oleg for his very wise introduction into the question of the legality and the status of din Torah, of a decision of a rabbinical court, whether it's according to arbitration law, and the legal side as well as the practical problems dealing with the enforcement and the recognition of the decision of a Beit Din here in Russia. With your permission, I would like to come down from the Olympus down to earth and say when my friend on your left, on my right side, Mr. Klimov, wanted to introduce the idea that the Beit Din of Moscow should become officially a recognized arbitration court in Moscow. We decided to, and he even wrote an article on this, we decided to look at this issue from all different sides. So before I go into the practical side of this problem, I would like just to quote two psukim, two verses from last week's Torah reading. One of them is Lo taguru mipnei ish ki hamishpat leElohim hu. A judge should not be afraid of any person he judges, because he is in the place of God judging a human being. And the other verse is Lo takiru panim b'mishpat. You should not make a difference. Should not make a difference to you who is standing in front of you when you are deciding who is right, who is wrong, whether this person is rich or this person is poor. So the history, I'm talking now 30 years of being in this community here. With when I came into Moscow 30 years ago, there were about 1 million Jews here in Moscow. Today we think we have about 250,000 Jews left. Now, the great majority of Jews here are not religious. They are secular. Then we have, let's say, a certain percentage of traditional Jews, mostly Sephardi Jews, who are traditional. They come to synagogues, they take part in life cycle events, and they also have great respect for the rabbinate, for the rabbis, etc. And then we have the small percentage of really religious Jews, as Datiim or Haredim, as they are known in Israel. So, in many different cases, there are financial disputes between members of the community, and these problems have to be solved somehow. So today there are basically three ways of solving these problems. One way is, you're surrounded by lawyers and professors of law, is the law of the land, Dina de Malchuta. The second way, which is most probably the most common in this land, is, I would say, the law of the street, which means every business has a certain, it's called in Russia, it's called a krisha, means, translates into English, it means having a roof, meaning a protection agency. It might be criminal, it might be different, it might be half official, and if you have a legal or half legal problem with somebody else, you go to your krisha, and they're dealing with the krisha of an organization. That's the second way. The third way is to come to the rabbi, and the rabbi and the other side will have to agree to come to the rabbi, or to the rabbinate, to the Beit Din as well, and whatever the rabbi says, this is going to happen. Now, you have to understand something. Let's take a look, for example, post-war Germany, after 1945. All the Yakers, all the German Jews left Germany. The only Jews left there were Polish Jews who survived the concentration camps. A lot of them were involved in illegal commercial activities. The German government closed their eyes. They didn't touch a Jew. No Jew was sent to jail. It was really a Gan Eden. It was a Garden of Eden. And when they had a legal problem between them, they couldn't go to court, they couldn't go to the police. Who did they go to? They went to the rabbi. There were no documents written, there was nothing official, but the decision of the rabbi was binding for those people who were totally non-religious. They didn't care, totally non-religious, but this was the code of conduct, at least 20, 30 years in post-war Germany. Now, coming back to our Russian, I would say, post-communist reality, I just would like to share with you a few of the cases which were in front of different Batei Din in Moscow and other places to explain you to some extent the problematic or the situation which we are in, and in what context decisions are taken and are being implemented. And this then explains to what extent this affects the legalization of the rabbinical court as an arbitration court. There was a case between two people who dealing in financial transactions. Financial transactions, again, it was a case which could not go in front of a legal court because there were no documents whatsoever. I don't know if even everything was 100% legal or not. But the case was the following, that one person took a sum of money for another person from place A to place B, and while this person was going from one place A to place B, the person was attacked by a thief, by a robber, and the money was taken away from him. And the question is that this person has to pay the money, even though this person was the person responsible, or the person who sent this person, the Meshaleach, was this person responsible for the money or not? Who was responsible for the money? So the three Dayanim were actually very eminent Talmidei Chachamim, rabbinical. One of them is even a rabbinical judge in the Beit Din of Rabbi Nissim Kavelitz in Bnei Brak, Russian speaking, and they came and they decided, according to Halacha, that the person who carried the money did not have responsibility for this money which was taken away from him, because this person had a status of a shomer chinam or even a shomer sachar, but this was not. This was gzela, so it was honest. Therefore, the Beit Din decided that the person is not responsible, does not have to reimburse the money which was stolen from him. And when the Beit Din gave this decision in writing, I saw that the losing party was a woman. She was smiling with the greatest smile. Usually the person who loses doesn't smile, usually, right? So after the end of the court case, I called her in and said, listen, tell me, why are you smiling? Why are you so happy? You lost. You're not getting reimbursed. So she tells me, you don't understand, I won. Why? She told me that, according to Halacha, I don't have to be reimbursed. But now I have black and white, I have a document that this and this is what happened, and there was between me and between this person, there was a relationship, and this money was owed to me, and this what happened. Now I can go to my Krisha, I can go to my protection agency and tell them to get the money from them, because according to the law of the streets, I'm supposed to get the money. So you see, in what context, sometimes decisions which are taken according to Halacha can have totally different ramifications and totally different results. when I discussed with my good friend the idea of the legalization or of the implementation of decisions of rabbinical courts as arbitration court, I was concerned with two issues, and Oleg spoke about one of them. I want to speak about both of them. One of them is what it says, what was quoted, that לא תכירו פנים במשפט, which means we have to make sure that the judge, the dayan, is totally impartial. I'm not even speaking about getting bribes, shochat, which we all know is totally unacceptable. But there's another part of the problem, which is a much bigger problem today, which in halakha is mentioned not as shochat, but as tovat hana'ah. Tovat hana'ah, I would maybe today translate this into conflict of interests, or some fringe benefits which can be gotten by some of the judges. So, for example, in Mishpat, we all know that it says that the dayanim of a city cannot sit on a case concerning a Torah scroll, Sefer Torah, which is on the question if it belongs to the synagogue of the city or belongs to some private person, because there is a conflict of interest, because the dayanim themselves, they're also benefiting from having this Torah scroll in the city, and so they have, there is a conflict of interest over there, and therefore the dayanim have to excuse themselves from dealing in such court cases. So most people who have court cases and come to the rabbi are people who A, have money, because if they wouldn't have money, they wouldn't come, there would be no court case, and B, if they have money and they're associated with the community, means they give money to the community. So in the Western context, where every person who is a member of the community, give example in Western Europe, if your income is X, then you have to pay Y to the community on an annual basis, fixed according to the law, according to the statute. And it is the community which deals with fundraising. The rabbi is an employee, so the rabbi is an impartial figure, and the rabbi can take an impartial decision. However, in the post-Soviet model, the rabbi is much more than that. The rabbi is the fundraiser, the rabbi is in charge of the communal finances, and is not an employee. So actually, the rabbi has in front of him one of the sponsors of the community. So how can you now, if both are sponsors of the community, so the question is who gives more? And you also don't know what was given personally, what was not given personally, you don't know everything. So this puts under question the whole legality and impartiality of this ad hoc rabbinical court, which is the greatest problem. And for example, but it goes much further than that, from that. For example, I'm the Rabbi, and we're dealing also many times with questions and fights between communities and rabbis. Let's say the community fired a rabbi, and the rabbi is asking for real wages, and so I'm the Rabbi. However, I'm also raising money for this organization. Because I have to raise money for this organization, I have a conflict of interest, because if I say that the rabbi is right, which means that the organization needs more money to pay this rabbi, so I have a conflict of interest here. So in all these cases, which should be naturally decided by the head of the rabbinical court of the organization, I have to excuse myself because I'm not impartial. So I have to take a dayan who is not involved in fundraising, who has no financial responsibility. Number two is the additional issue of threats. We dealt in the past of when rabbinical judges were threatened, and I had one case I don't want to mention because the names are very, very well-known names. One of the most important rabbis in Russia was taken to the Beit Din by one of the most famous oligarchs. And okay, I excuse myself because of my good relation with one, my bad relation with the other. There was another Beit Din set up with totally impartial people. And the head of this new Beit Din basically, on his other trip to Israel, was called in by one of the most famous, influential rabbis in Israel, who is today sitting in jail, and was threatened with his life if he would go further with this Din Torah. So the question I'm asking myself, before the practical question is, can we implement that decisions of rabbinical court in Russia can be given legal standing by an enforcement through Russian law? The next question is, do we think that the state of the courts, of the rabbinical courts, whether they're ad hoc or in Russia, are strong enough to be what the Torah demands from us, to be impartial, to do justice, and not to be subjected to threats from third parties? And because I was not sure that the answer was yes to the last two questions, that's the reason I decided not to pursue this venue, saying that we are still not ready for this, and before we deal with enforcement, we have to be 100% sure that the Beit Din will be independent, will be just, not and Dayanim cannot be threatened and cannot be bought. So, having said that, I would like to say that in most of the cases I'm dealing with today, are dealing with cases where there is no formal Beit Din, and people look at me at my rabbinical authority, people come on their own, and when a decision is taken, the decision is being respected. And also, there's a lot of times when, let's say, a person, an ex-employee of one of the biggest business people in the city, could not approach the person personally, but they approach the rabbinate, the Beit Din, and I'm calling up the person, says, listen, you were called to the Beit Din, and the person appears, and they are settling the dispute amicably in front of the Beit Din. So, having said that, meaning is that to some extent, our spiritual authority is the one which we are using today, and is the one which is the most important one. And in our post-Soviet context, I would say it's even much more important than the legal way to enforce the decisions of a rabbinical court as an arbitrary court. Anyway, my dear friends, thank you for letting me to give these few comments, and it was great having you here in Moscow. Thank you very much.
Rabbi, thank you very much. My personal thanks for your excellence to Russian street law.